Good morning. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs for the 2025 legislative session. We are excited to be back in committee this morning. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Carter, DeLong, De Silva, Edgeworth, Flanagan, Gallant, Golding, Gurr, Hunt, Jackson, Karras, Kasama, Wynn, Chair Considine.
And I am here. Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those joining by video conference in Las Vegas, and those listening over the internet. I would like to begin with some housekeeping measures. First, please check and silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to our committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name and any affiliation for the record. Turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. If you are providing handouts, please ensure that hard copies are available for the members of the public. Electronic copies should have been submitted to our committee manager by 9 a.m. yesterday for our committee members. We do expect a courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we disagree with someone else's position. And committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not interpret this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. So let's get started. Today we will be hearing three bills. We will begin with Assembly Bill 188, which revises provisions relating to the Public Employees Benefits Program. Then we will hear Senate Bill 27, which revises provisions relating to museums. And finally, we will hear SB 418, which revises provisions relating to the collection of delinquent contributions by the Public Employees Retirement System. To ensure we get through everyone fairly and in a timely manner, we will set a 20-minute time limit for each period of support, opposition, and neutral testimony. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes. And I will now open the hearing on AB 188. To present this measure, we have Assembly Member Carter, and he will introduce his fellow presenters. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning, members of the Committee on Government Affairs. I'm Max Carter, Assembly District 12. And I'm here today with members of AFSCME, and I want to say that I appreciate all of the people who wore green today in support of state employees. Of course, I forgot, and I got my pink on, but I'm sorry. But all of you who did get the memo and paid attention, I appreciate it. So, and I'm going to take and let my co-presenters introduce themselves from my left to the right. And
my name is Kelly Lynn Charles, and I am a proud member of AFSCME 4041.
Hello, my name is Cassie Charles. I'm the political representative for AFSCME here in Nevada.
Hi, my name is Patty Mockle, and I'm treasurer for the AFSCME retirees of 4041.
this is Max Carter again, and remember all of us that we have to say our names every time we present for the record. And also we have Tess Offerman with us on deck to answer questions, any questions that may come up. So with that, we'll get started. I'll get started. This is Assembly Bill 188. And yes, this is maybe the last Assembly bill this committee will hear, but maybe not. This bill was in Ways, and it will go back to Ways. It's got a fiscal note that we are working on with PEB, Public Employee Benefit Program, the healthcare system for our state employees, state and other government employees. So what we're trying to do here today with AB 188, its primary purpose is to take and restore a benefit that was, I guess, what's the value? It was taken out of the budget back in, I believe it was 2011, when we were going through a very, very deep budget crisis. This is what AB 188 is doing about health care benefits, is restoring those benefits for that gap between early retirement and Medicare. You know, we have a system that you'll hear about that does provide for early retirement, but one of the biggest burdens to early retirement is that healthcare piece. That's what helps people retire and stay retired. I know this personally because on my union's plan, I went through some personal stuff and dealt with some mental health issues and was able to retire at 55, primarily because I was able to keep my health care intact in that gap between 55 and 65. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cassie, and to talk to you about what this bill means to our state workers and employees.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Cassie Charles. I'm the political representative for AFSCME, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. We represent several thousand active state employees across the state, many of which would be directly impacted by this policy. I also would like to thank you for wearing your AFSCME green today, and would like to formally accept the apology for not wearing green by by our Assemblyman here, Max Carter. But today we are hearing AB 188, a much-needed and overdue fix to the healthcare benefits provided for our state retirees. As this body is well aware, for decades, state employees have accepted lower wages in exchange for better benefits, in particular healthcare benefits. These benefits have traditionally been a main motivator for longevity and retention within the state employees' workforce, especially as we begin to see more competitive offers from cities and counties. Unfortunately, today, healthcare benefits for state employees are no longer the incentive they used to be. Over the last 2 decades, we have whittled retirement benefits down. State jobs still offer lower pay than surrounding cities and counties, but they also offer worse benefits rather than better. To give you a brief history, during 2011 legislative session, this body faced a budget crisis and made drastic changes and cuts to state retirement benefits in an attempt to save state money. First, the state took away retirement health care benefits for all employees hired after 2011, December 31st, 2011 specifically. This means that those hired after the 2011 cutoff would have a gap between age of retirement and when they turned 65, when Medicare coverage would kick in. The thinking at the time was that retirement benefits would always be reinstated, but 14 years later, post-2011 hires still do not have access to healthcare coverage until they are eligible for Medicare. This means that a person could work for the state their whole career, fulfilling a whole 30 years, and then not be able to retire because they are not yet Medicare eligible at 65 years of age. For instance, a person who started with the state at the age of 20 would be eligible to retire at 50, but would likely have to keep working an additional 15 years in order to reach Medicare eligibility. Alternatively, they would have to fund their own healthcare coverage, which is simply not a financial option for most state retirees. Secondly, the state moved to Medicare-eligible retirees from PEB-run insurance to Medicare. Because this group of retirees has been promised healthcare coverage through retirement, the state created an additional fund, the Health Reimbursement Arrangement, or HRA, which would pay a monthly stipend to retirees to cover their additional healthcare costs. Since 2011, the calculated stipend has only increased 1 time, despite inflation in our healthcare costs. Retirees living on a fixed income are eating these costs, and their promised healthcare coverage isn't being covered by a long shot. To make matters worse, PEB put a cap on the HRA accounts, meaning retirees can't save more than $8,000 in their HRA. While some retirees use their HRA for monthly expenses, others wish to use the account and save the account for catastrophic expenses. This cap unfairly prevents them from saving their own money in this way. AB 188 seeks to bring back retirement healthcare benefits for our post-2011 hires and ensures the health reimbursement arrangement increases at a fair rate. To quickly review each section of this bill, Section 1 of this bill amends Chapter 287 of the NRS to require the PEB board to submit a report on the annual cost of healthcare coverage for Medicare. This is to help evaluate whether the health reimbursement arrangement is currently covering an adequate amount of out-of-pocket costs. The report must include the minimum cost of premiums charged for Medicare Part B, the average cost to maintain a Medicare supplemental policy, the average cost for prescription drug coverage through Medicare Part D, and the average cost for dental and vision coverage in an effort to evaluate the effectiveness of the current health reimbursement arrangement and provide more equitable subsidies. Section 2 is conforming language for definitions. Section 3 of this bill reinstates retiree coverage for state employees hired after December 31st of 2011 with at least 15 years of service. Additionally, Section 3 removes the current cap of $8,000 from the health reimbursement arrangement, clarifying that the board shall not establish a yearly balance and that money deposited into the HRA must remain in the account rather than revert into another fund until the death of the retired person. And Section 4 of this bill would allow retirees to reinstate PEB coverage after more than one gap in coverage during the open enrollment period. It's important to recognize here that state employees hired after the Great Recession deserve the same benefits as those hired in better economic years. We have seen time and time again that when Nevada hits an economic downturn, Nevada's hardworking state employees take the brunt impact through furloughs, program cuts, and even salary decreases. While we recognize that we are once again on the edge of an economic downturn, now is the time to reaffirm our commitment to state employees and reinstate health coverage for retirees. I'd like to now pass it to our Local 4041 member, Kelly Lynn Charles, who's going to share her story.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kelly Lynn Charles. I am a state employee and proud union member of AFSCME 4041. I have taken leave today to speak with you on my own time, and my comments do not reflect those of my agency. I am here to strongly support AB 188, not just as a public servant, but as someone whose life is directly impacted by the issues this bill addresses. AB 188 addresses a major inequity by restoring the health benefits eligibility to state employees like me who were hired after January 1st, 2012. Those hired after that date work just as hard as those hired before. We've committed our careers to serving Nevada and deserve equal treatment and support in our retirement. The bill provides critical reforms that would make real and lasting difference in my life. I live with a heart condition that has shaped my healthcare journey for decades. I also suffer from severe food allergies that require me to carry an EpiPen at all times. My healthcare needs are not optional. They're urgent, ongoing, and life-threatening. Like many state employees, I took a pay cut to come work to the state. When I was offered my state job, I weighed the loss in wages against better benefits and the expectation of quality health insurance in my retirement. That trade-off seemed worthwhile at the time, even though transitioning to the state plan meant knowingly starting over by finding new doctors I could trust with my care. Fortunately, I found doctors who listened and advocated for me. After 25 years of fighting, I finally received the medical procedure I needed. But without access to quality retiree health care, those hard-won gains could disappear, and I'll be back to square one. Right now, I pay $20 a year for my 2 EpiPens. I know as a state employee I'm a very lucky person, but without retiree health care, those same medications could cost me between $200 and $700 a year. Next year, I will be eligible to retire with 30 years of service and PERS, but at only 56 years old, I will need to wait 9 years to qualify for Medicare coverage. Access to affordable, comprehensive health care in retirement is not a luxury for me. It's a matter of survival. AB 188 is about fairness and ensuring that Nevada's retirees, especially those with complex health needs like my own, are not left behind. I respectfully urge you to pass 188, and I thank you for your time and your consideration.
And finally, we will pass it to Patty on behalf of our AFSCME retirees.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Patty Mockle, and I serve as the treasurer for the AFSCME Retiree Chapter 4041. As you know, we continue to ask for an increase in the health reimbursement arrangement, as well as removing the caps. I want to give you a sense of why this is important to us as retirees. I began working for the state in 1997. I worked for the Public Employees Retirement System, not to be confused with Public Employees Benefit Program. Though I didn't make as much money as I could have in the private sector, I liked working for the state. And as a single mom, medical insurance and retirement was very important. And I was looking forward to the benefits that I was promised when I retired. I served the state for 17 years, retiring in 2014. Throughout the years, I was always promised my retirement health care benefits would be covered. After all, that was the one perk of working for the state. However, in 2011, the legislature's changed benefits for our retirees. Rather than being covered by PEBS itself, those 65 and older were put into Medicare. To cover additional health care expenses, the state created the health reimbursement arrangement, an account designed to ensure all retiree health care costs would still be covered by the state. At the time, this might have seemed like a viable solution to the legislatures and to PEBS, but now the system is not working for retirees. The amount we pay through the account has not increased since 2015. Because I worked for the state for 17 years, I get $221 per month to cover my supplement plans. The most anyone can get is $260. Yet I am paying $180 for Medicare, $300 out of pocket for supplement, not to mention my prescriptions of $300 a month. We know healthcare costs have gone up over the last 10 years. Why hasn't the HRA kept up? The HRA is also capped at $8,000. If you don't use your HRA and it exceeds the $8,000 cap, PEBS swipes the money. This is blatantly unfair. If I choose to save the money and for something catastrophic, why should PEBS be able to take these funds? Have you seen the cost of long-term care facilities? For my entire 17 years career, I was promised health care coverage. Now that I'm retired, the state isn't upholding their promise. If the state wants to continue with new employees to stay with them for their career, something must change, and AB 188 is the appropriate step forward. I hope you uphold your commitment and promise to your state workers and pass AB 188.
Max Carter for the record. And I just want to close up now before we go into questions with talking about the situation that the legislature's finding itself in. First off, that unlike a lot of us in the private sector, these types of benefits are not an item of collective bargaining. It's not something that can be negotiated for. It's something that us, you, the legislature, is responsible for setting these benefits. We have a recruitment problem. We've got multiple vacancies, and we need to take and address that and get these benefits back up to where they are. And finally, I'll point out that as we know, and we have a substantial budget shortfall going on in this state right now that could, some would say will, get worse when we get the report from the Economic Forum in early May. What is the first thing that's going to be asked to do? Is we're going to be asking, undoubtedly, state agencies to cut staff, to reduce workloads, and the like. What is the traditional way that's done? Is they first ask for those that are able to retire to make it easier on the state directors. It's easier to have somebody retire than be the person who picks. We're firing you, we're firing you. This is a tool that I would argue we are working on getting the fiscal note down, and I know this is likely an argument that will be presented in Ways and Means, but I would say that the fiscal note on this would more than likely, although I'd say assuredly, be more than offset in the ease and the smoother way of able to reduce staff, making it easier on our directors, and honestly making it easier on you and I to make these tough decisions about requiring and asking for staffing cuts. And with that, we're open for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. We do have some questions from members. We will start with Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the presentation from all four of you. I have to admit, I am still a little confused on what you're asking for. I had Mr. Irwin in my office lobbying me, and the impression I got from him is you're basically looking at wanting to go back to what was there prior to January 1, 2012. But the presentation here today it sounds like you're asking for an increase in the cap for, I think you called it the HRA, and not have it be swept. Are they both correct, or is one correct? And then depending on your answer, I might have a follow-up.
Max Carter for the record. Thank you, Mr. Assemblymember DeLong. We have Tess Offerman coming up. I could tell you, yes, all of the above, but we'll let Tess answer in a more technical manner than that.
Thank you, Tess Opferman, for the record, here on behalf of the AFSCME retirees. So yes, that is part of it. I think the bill does have a few different sections to it. So one, it is bringing healthcare coverage back to those hired after 2012. So that piece is returning to how it was before 2011. And then the HRA piece has two different parts to it. So one, the bill requires PEB to create a report about healthcare costs. So this bill does not, our focus is to increase the HRA. That is something we've talked about a lot this session. This bill itself does not increase the HRA. It requires a report, which could then show how healthcare costs have increased to show the requirement for an increase in the HRA. The additional section of that, or to do with the HRA, would be removing the $8,000 cap.
Follow-up, Chair. Thank you. Two-part follow-up. One is, did the HRA exist before January 1, 2012?
The HRA did not exist because our retirees were still on PEB healthcare coverage. So the HRA was created when they moved.
I got that.
Okay.
So you were asking to roll back to pre-2012, but you want to keep the HRA?
Tess Opferman, for the record. I understand the confusion. We want to roll back to pre-2012 for actives. So actives could get retirement benefits from the age of retirement until they get onto Medicare. Our Medicare retirees will remain on Medicare. We are not passing a bill to have our Medicare retirees return to state health care coverage. So that piece does not return to how the coverage was.
And so what we would end up
2011.
doing with this bill is actually removing Medicare as the post-65 retirement option?
Tess Opperman, for the record, no. So once our retirees turn 65, they would get onto Medicare,
Okay.
the way it is currently.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Assemblymember De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. And before I ask my question, I just want to, thank you all, the retirees here, for your service, your dedicated service to the state. You really are the backbone of everything that we do here in Nevada. Thank you so much for your service to our great state. Question is this: did the elimination now of benefits in 2011 save the state any monies?
Cassie Charles for the record. To be very simple here, we have not yet seen the savings from the 2011 change because none of these employees have retired yet, and we are still covering pre-2012 retirees. This bill would prevent savings for future decades rather than incur an additional cost.
Thank you. Our next question is from Vice Chair Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to echo my colleague on, appreciation to the state employees. I have a, honor to witness a lot of these employees day in and day out, and the kind of work that you all do, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. So thank you for your service to the state. With that, my question is, how many retirees would this affect?
This is Cassie Charles for the record. Thank you, Assemblyman, for this question. Right now, we are anticipating 73 additional retirees with benefits in fiscal year 2027, then about 100 per year in the next 10 to 12 years.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Karras.
Oops. Good morning. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this presentation. Being a retiree myself, I know how crucial this is to everyone who is looking to it in the future and those who are experiencing it already. My question is I need a little clarification. I understand that you're also trying to change being able to go back to the coverage after 2 times. Is that correct?
Tess Opperman for the record. So currently, retirees are offered, they can leave the coverage one time and come back one time. This bill would change it so that they could come back, they could leave and come back more than one time. This is not to encourage people to just come on and off the plan, but there are plenty of cases where people accidentally leave, they don't understand that they've left. The one-time provision has not been enough, so this just gives a little bit more flexibility to that.
Thank you for that, because I understand that a lot of times people will leave a plan. I wasn't aware that people are leaving it without knowing they did, so that gives me why you want more than one. I know many times when you have a spouse who has different coverage, you may choose to leave because it would be free or way cheaper to do that. So I was trying to figure out what other case scenario would that cover. So thank you very much for that.
Max Carter for the record, and yes, I'd like to expand on that a bit, that absolutely, the plan is set up to where you can go off of it if you've got a spouse with other coverage or you have coverage from somewhere else that lasts till they terminate their employment through retirement or whatever, and then you're allowed back in. The system is very rigid and structured, though, which it has to be, so that if you screw up, that, you know, that there's not a lot of leniency to accommodate mistakes.
If I can just add one more piece to that, Tess Opperman for the record. You know, there are cases where we're talking about retirees. Some of them are very old, 95 years old. Sometimes they have caretakers that are looking at their health care plans. And so maybe they made the mistake. They got off the plan in their 70s. Now they're 95. They have a caretaker. They don't know. The caretaker doesn't realize that this clause exists. The caretaker sees a new option and says, oh, this is a cost-saving measure. We'll move a person to this other plan, not realizing what they've done. The retiree has already used up their one-time provision, and now they're stuck. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Goulding.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. So to confirm, so a public employee has to serve for 15 years to be eligible for retirement health care. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what percentage of public employees serve for 15 years and therefore qualify?
Cassie Charles for the record, we don't currently have that stat, but we will follow up offline.
Any rough guess?
Not currently,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Max Carter for the record. I did want to point out that this is a very diverse group. It's not just AFSCME covered employees. We're talking about the Department of Public Safety, meaning the state police, and it's a lot of different employees that are covered under our state PEB plan. It's not isolated to like one bargaining unit.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to make sure I understand how it affects spouses, because sometimes with plans like this, you mentioned Assemblyman Carter, Member Carter, your spouse could be a part of it or get off or get back on in different cases. Is the coverage the same for a spouse? And if the retiree passes and is the spouse allowed to continue in the plan? And is the coverage any different? Like usually there's like a one time a year enrollment period. Just curious about that process.
Max Carter for the record. We're phoning a friend with everybody knows, Mr. Kent Irvin.
Kent Irvin, ERVIN, Nevada Faculty Alliance. So there's several questions there. The example being given was, for example, if you have a spouse, not a state employee, who has another job, who has benefits that can bring the state retiree on as a dependent for a while. Without this being able to get back into PEB easily, there would be an incentive for the retiree just to stay on PEB, pay into the system, and the state is paying into the system during that time also. As far as dependent coverage, each of these plans has the opportunity for the retiree or active to purchase dependent care at a reduced premium, but not nearly as much of a employer contribution as for the retiree or active. So that's built into all of these plans. And there are also survivor benefits that we'd have to follow up with the exact rates. That I think it's the opportunity to buy into the PEB plan, but at either a very much reduced or no contribution from the state.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all the presentation and all the work that you do. My question is, how much, I'm just trying to understand how much premium does the employee take or is taken out of their paycheck? I mean, how is it shared between the employer and the employee? And then when you're on the health care plan after you're no longer actively working, how much, if any, is the share that the former employee has?
Kent Irvin for the record. So it varies depending on whether you're an active, dependent of an active or a retiree or a Medicare retiree. But as far as these retiree health benefits, the way they're paid is through a fringe benefit rate that's applied to all state employees' salaries, but not all of those salaries are from the general fund, about 60% are. So for example, if a position is funded by a federal grant project, the grant would be paying that fringe rate towards current retiree benefits.
Thank you. And our last question is from Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you for the follow-up. Comment was made about people, it sounded like almost accidentally unenrolling. My understanding is to unenroll from the plan is a very proactive activity with forms that have to be filled out. And I would think if a retiree is not quote unquote capable of doing it themselves, you couldn't just have anyone unenroll them. It'd have to be someone with a power of attorney. Isn't that correct?
Kent Irvin for the record. So here's what happens. Every year, Medicare, during open enrollment, you get thousands of calls. I know this. You get at least hundreds of calls. And some of them, local brokers may be referred to by a friend, will say, we have this great Medicare Advantage program, or we have this great Medicare supplement program. It will be cheaper than what you're paying now. So the person signs up. All they have to do is sign up through that broker. Once that goes through, via benefits, which administers the PEB, HRA, and Medicare exchange, will get notified, and suddenly that person no longer is in PEB and no longer gets their HRA contribution from the state. So it's not hard for that to happen, and that regularly happens.
Thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, the real last question is from Assemblymember Gurr.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And I kind of think you might have bounced around the answer to this, but do you have any clue on the average age that people retire at the state now?
Currently, we see, Cassie Charles for the record, currently we see the average age of retirement between 55 and 65, but I can get specifics for you and bring it to this committee. Thank you.
It would just be interesting to see. I imagine the actuarials will have fun with it one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. We will now move on to testimony. And testimony can be provided here in Carson City via video conference in Las Vegas or over the phone, and further instructions for providing testimony on a bill can be found on the agenda. We will be maintaining a 20-minute time limit for periods of support, opposition, and neutral, with each speaker having no more than 2 minutes. And we will begin here in Carson City with testimony in support of AB 188. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Considine, Vice Chair Nguyen, and fellow committee members. For the record, my name is Terry Laird, spelled Terrilaird. I'm the Executive Director at RPEN, the Retired Public Employees of Nevada, where we represent all public employees. Created almost 50 years ago, we have nearly 7,000 dues-paying members and 17 chapters statewide. We are here in support today of Assembly Bill 188 because we believe all state employees deserve to have health care benefits upon retirement. Although since January 1, 2012, as you heard, new state employees do not have that luxury. And while we know the state's current funding issues may keep this bill from passing, we do hope that this is starting the discussion because it's necessary, in the hope that perhaps 2 years from now, this issue can be given more serious consideration and perhaps pass then. We know that Social Security Fairness Act took years to be resolved, and we hope this omission for new state employees can be overturned in less time. We also want to thank Assemblymember Max Carter for agreeing to champion this issue during this 83rd session, and we also thank the unofficial leader of the Public Employee Coalition, Dr. Kent Irvin, for his unwavering dedication to bringing this issue forward at this session. Thank you.
Committee members, my name is Lynn Ballator. That's LYNNE-BALLATORE, and I am currently the state president of RPEN. Excuse me. I apologize for repeating some of what's been already said, but the state of Nevada to hire and keep qualified employees relies on good benefits and retirement. Needing good benefits and retirement is partly because the state generally pays salaries less than many counties, cities, and private industry. Until January 2012, retirees received an opportunity to stay with the state, offered supplemented health insurance, but those hired after January 1st, 2012 and retire before Medicare eligibility do not get the health insurance benefit. The lack of insurance has led to some good employees leaving state employment. With the state's trouble filling positions the past several years, salaries were raised and some retention bonuses were approved in the 2023 session. Since the state started restoration of hiring and retention methods, it makes sense that the restoration of the early retirement health insurance subsidy would be a logical continuation of the goal of improving the public workforce. I did look up a couple of things online. Nevada's average retirement age is actually 63, although we know that people who start working earlier can retire earlier, and our public safety have different rules. The average regular PERS payment is $2,539 per month, but where the average health insurance for an individual in Nevada, just an individual, is $592 per month. We just need to do it for our employees, and we do work for the people of Nevada, and I urge you to pass AB 188. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Abel, John-Abel. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the LVPPA. I'm here representing Public Safety Alliance of Nevada. Part of my daily duties as a police union representative is I'm one of 8 people who run LVMPD's healthcare. We also have to take care of our retirees. I believe when you hire on with the state as a public employee, once they work for us or work for you for 20 to 30 years, that we owe them this benefit. It's a quality of life issue. I see that every day with our retirees. So for that reason, we support this bill. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. For the record, Ryan Beeman, B-E-A-M-A-N, representing the professional firefighters of Nevada. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of AB 188. Every day, my colleagues and I put our lives on the line to protect our communities from disasters and emergencies. But beyond the daily risks, we also face long-term health challenges due to our profession and exposure to hazardous conditions, stress, and physical strain. That is why I stand or sit before you today in strong support of AB 188, a bill that ensures that state firefighters receive fair and necessary health care support in retirement. For too long, those that were hired after January 1st, 2012 have faced an unjust exclusion from the state subsidized health care upon retirement. We dedicate decades of service to the state, yet when we retire, we are left to navigate this complex health care on our own, an unfair burden that AB 188 seeks to correct. By restoring the health benefits subsidies for post-2012 hires, this bill acknowledges the commitment of all state first responders regardless of their date of hire. I urge the committee to support and recognize the vital role that first responders play and to support AB 188, ensuring that our state's men and women retire with the security and health care they have rightfully earned. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the community. My name is Deanna Dorsey. I would like to testify in support of AB 188. I did start my service with the state after 2011, the cutoff, and I deserve the access to health benefits upon retirement, just like my colleagues who were hired before me. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Benita R. Lopez. First, thank you so much for even just allowing me to speak. Since the day that I've come to Nevada, the Great Recession when it happened, one of the first things I know that I thought I wanted to do was to go to school, to get myself educated. Not that I didn't love working in the casino, but I knew that we would be back and we would be better than ever. And since that time, we've seen our GDP growth more than the national average. And I'm proud to say that I'm a social worker now and that I am with the state of Nevada, and I stand with the state of Nevada. So the reason I'm here today is in support of AB 188, because I would like Nevada to stand in support of us. Those state workers that started after 2011 and brought our increased skills, education levels to diversify our economy, as well as our job growth. I've seen many times, unfortunately, people in my profession having to retire early, not because they wanted to, but because of health issues. And from there, have nowhere to go, have to go to the open market and try to find health care to try to get the assistance that we so offer to others for themselves. Unfortunately, it didn't always work out that way. We've had fundraisers, we've done all we could to support each other. So now all we're asking is that if state of Nevada could stand with its employees and help support us. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is David Monachino, M-O-N-A-C-H-I-N-O. I'm a state employee at the Nevada Department of Education. I'm an IT professional. Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm in support of AB 188 to help retain my talented coworkers and recruit more talented workers to the state of Nevada. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. My name is Mike Allmeyer, A-H-L-M-E-Y-E-R, and I'm actually one of the lucky ones that is be able to retire at 51 with the benefits. But if it wasn't for those benefits, I probably wouldn't be working at, I work at TMCC. And so without that benefit, I have a kidney pancreas transplant. That with the healthcare is very important to me as far as my medications would cost me over $2,000 a month. So with that, and then also with the employees that are in after 2011, if anyone else in like my situation, it would be very difficult for them to actually stay or get employees to be with the state without that benefit, because they would have to look elsewhere and try and make that healthcare work for them. So with the state, I'm thankful for the healthcare that I have and lucky enough to be in before 2011. Thank you.
Good morning, Assembly Floor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nolani Page. I am currently a state employee, and any of the ideas or expressions here today do not represent my agency in any way. I started my state employment in 2014 at the age of 28 years old, meaning I would retire around the age of 58. I am an essential employee and worked 60 hours a week during the peak of the pandemic. At age 35, I had a pulmonary valve replacement. This means I will need cardiac support for the rest of my life. Should I be so fortunate to live to retirement, medical insurance will be life or death for me. For our state employees who have contributed so much and dedicated so much, to be told that after 30 years, our contributions mean nothing and we should have chosen a different agency or a different business to make sure that we had the benefits we needed to survive, just is not fair. I'd really like you guys to take into consideration that our employees deserve our best.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shannon Keys, and I have been with the state for now 27 years. I stand before you in request to try to keep our workforce strong. You know, I've seen everything: furloughs, pay cuts, lack of benefits, all kinds of changes. I've seen good candidates come and go because what we offered in the beginning when everybody starts state service is no longer an option for a lot of our new recruits. And so I just would like to ask you guys to please support this bill. I do believe that we could get tons of employees back that I saw leave because these were some of the reasons that they had left service, knowing that they were going to have to compete with medical after they retired. So again, I do ask for your support in this bill, and I thank you guys for hearing the green wave.
Thank you. We will now go to Las Vegas. Those of you in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of AB 88, please go right ahead when you're ready.
Doug Unger, DOUG, UNGER, UNLV Chapter President, Nevada Faculty Alliance. Thank you, Chair Considine, Vice Chair Nguyen, and members of the committee. At the beginning of this 83rd session, Governor Lombardo and this legislature celebrated progress in solving critical state employee shortages across agencies with numbers that show shortfalls reduced from around 25% to about 12%. This was accomplished in part by raising salaries significantly and maintaining stable healthcare benefits. Now state workers, including NG faculty and professionals, face mandated increased retirement contributions of 1.75% to a total of 19.25% of take-home pay, salaries left stagnant after 6% inflation over 2 years, probably another 6% or more this next biennium, plus increased healthcare premiums combined with ever higher costs. Looking ahead to retirement, Medicare-only coverage for healthcare, the only available plan, feels now every day more insecure due to unpredictable policies of the new federal regime. AB 188 will provide at least something positive to counterbalance this disappointing news. Retiree healthcare subsidies used to be treated like a promise until that promise was broken as a result of Great Recession budget cuts. The restoration of a modest PEB subsidy in AB 188 will help our state hire and retain new employees and our colleges and universities, new faculty, professionals, and staff. This bill will restore some fairness and equity to state employee retirement. It's the right thing to do, one small good thing that can help keep up state employee morale and the progress we've been making to restore and maintain our state workforce into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of AB 188? Seeing no one else approach, AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 188?
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 188, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Ian Hartshorn, IANHARTSHORN, Nevada Faculty Alliance. Thank you, Chair and committee members. I join my colleagues in encouraging you to pass AB 188. We've heard today from retirees and those who benefited from the pre-2011 PEB benefits. I am one of the post-2011 hires whose benefits were preemptively reduced. Like hundreds or even thousands of employees hired after the Great Recession, I do not enjoy the same benefits as my colleagues just down the hall who hold the same title and serve the same Nevada students. These are things we, mid-career professionals, look at when we are deciding whether to continue in Nevada or take jobs in states with better benefits. My family has had this conversation, despite wanting to stay in Nevada. Losing professionals, including faculty, is costly and time-consuming. I hope you'll give state workers who joined public service during a period of cuts and furloughs a well-deserved benefit and a more dignified retirement. Thank you.
Chair, we have no additional callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will now move to opposition. Or is anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition to AB 188? Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Paul Marek from the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber has met with this bill sponsor and appreciate the conversations with him regarding AB 188, but the Chamber is opposed to the bill. The Chamber believes that 188 undoes the reform measures that were adopted in 2011 through AB 533, which was passed with bipartisan support because of the economic challenges facing the state at that time. And if I recall correctly, intent was always for this to be a permanent measure, not a temporary measure, as a result of the fact that there not being a sunset clause in the original bill. Today, as we know, there is a growing concern with the state's economy and the national economy and what this will mean for the state's upcoming budget. The Chamber recognizes that healthcare costs are increasing and empathizes, but the fact is everyone is being impacted by increasing healthcare costs in both the public and private sectors. For example, in the private sector, it is not unusual for an employer to see a 10% increase on the healthcare coverage for employees this year alone, and that's considered a good rate, unfortunately. Our concern is from a policy perspective that the reinstatement of the subsidy of PEB will contribute to the unfunded liability of the fund, which is a genuine concern from the taxpayer perspective and why the Chamber has advocated for decades to ensure that PEB and PERS are solvent as much as possible for future generations of employees. The Chamber believes that these previous reform efforts have helped manage the liability fund over the years, and the program is much more in a solvent position today. The fiscal note from PEB demonstrates the concern about the instant liability increase from 12.26% or $176 million, followed by a compounding interest rate of 3.5% each year, along with a $2 million fiscal note for the state's operational budget. We believe AB 188 is not in the best interest of state programs at this time, and reversing this policy would not be the most prudent choice at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition to AB 188? Seeing no one. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition to AB 188? Seeing no one. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 188?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. We have no callers for opposition at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral on AB 188? Seeing no one, is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral on the bill? Seeing no one approach, AVH, we're back to you if there is someone on the line wishing to testify in neutral on AB 188.
The public line is open and working. We have no callers to testify for neutral at this time.
Thank you. Now I'd like to bring up the sponsor for any final remarks.
Thank you, Chair. This is Max Carter for the record. And I just want to say that there have been no savings realized as of yet from this action, that they were all prospective savings for the state budget. It's not been implemented because we haven't reached retirement age for those that have come in after the 2011 bill. And I'd also like to say on the other parts that AFSCME retirees surveyed were 100% in favor of being allowed to increase their HRAs because of the ability to take in, manage those escalating expenses that we've talked about so much. And we're talking about trying to maintain promises that have been made to our state employees. And I appreciate your time and efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now close the hearing on Assembly Bill 188. And we will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 27. To present this measure, we will have Dan Thielen, Administrator of the Division of Museums and History, and please go ahead whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Chair. Dan Thielen, Thielen, Administrator of Nevada Division of Museums and History. Can you hear me now? There we go. I'm delighted to meet with you today to discuss this Senate bill. We have a NRS 387 gives the Museums and Division of Museums and History authority to conduct their business, and it has some provisions in there that have grown up and become more archaic in their use. So this bill will do three things. It will remove some of that archaic language. It will establish an ability for the museums to gather income from curation and other services that it provides. And then finally, it will change the naming conventions of the two museums, one in Carson City and one in Las Vegas. Let me take them one at a time. The language for the division includes language that the Board of Museums and History have some authority over collection management. This provision was in the initial board authority in 1939 when the State Museum in Carson City was established. At that time, the museum consisted of, the board consisted of staff members and some other selected people from the public. And we needed some authority to determine where artifacts were displayed in the museum and throughout the state. And so that authority was in there, and if you note, it says at the sole discretion of the board. That's the language we'd like to remove. In the course of the next 70 years or so, as the museums grew and developed, some board activities were merged with the initial board, and two of the key ones were the Historical Societies Board, that was merged with the state's board, and then the board that governed the State Historic Preservation Office, which merged some of its duties with the Division of Museums and History Board. And in that development, that language kept being carried on, and it is archaic. It conflicts with other language within the bill of the administrator's duties and curator or director's duties of the museums. And so we'd like to remove that. The second part of this bill is to establish curation fees for the various museums throughout the state. Sometimes we provide services for other agencies. Sometimes those agencies are state or county or private individuals. And to date, we have never charged for those or had a consistent charging for those services. And so one of the key things that we charge for is for the storing of Native American remains on behalf of other agencies, the BLM and the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service primarily. As we prepare these for repatriation, which is longer than anybody expected, but returning these Native American remains, we need to store them. And the federal government has, in the past, paid for that service. And so we want to continue that. But in the building of our budgets this year, we were notified that we don't have the authority to do that. And so we wanted to establish that authority. And that's what this NRS or SB 27 will allow us, is the authority to charge for storage, for curation, for studies, for other services that we can provide. And it will offset some of the general fund charges and things that normally would reasonable and customary services to the state. And finally, and you've received an amendment on this, we'd like to change the name of the museums to follow a convention of the Nevada. If there's a state museum in Carson City, we want it to be called the Nevada State Museum, Carson City. It has been in the past called the Nevada State Museum, and every other museum has had a geographical descriptor to it if necessary. So we want to follow that geographical description. When we submitted SB 27 back in March, I believe we did it, we made the mistake of adding the word "in," and that's what the language is. And then we were advised by Senator Daley on the board authority to, in a previous, I think it's 381-0063. F is the one we are clear on, and then there's one previous two up, so F, E, D. It's 381-0063D that has another archaic language giving board authority, and we'd like that removed as well. The convention, the naming convention, will allow the Division of Museums and History the ability to, if other museums join the 7 museums within the state, will follow that naming convention. If they're a standard museum, if they're a standard museum having all the disciplines within it, geology and prehistory and Native American studies and all the other things that it's hard to say, it's a regular museum or a full-service museum rather than a railroad museum or other museums in Lost City. We'll follow that naming convention. That's my presentation. I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I just want to clarify on the proposed conceptual amendment in number 2, that the section that you are taking out is on page, for the members, it's on page 3, line 20, it's essentially line 25 and 26, but it is under D, which is line 23. That line says board and administrator, but to align with the changes that were conflicting in NRS, that is what the second portion of your amendment is to do, correct? Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions from members? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation. We will move on to testimony.
Thank you.
Again, testimony can be provided in person here in Carson City via video conference in Las Vegas or over the phone, and instructions for providing testimony can be found on the agenda. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to provide testimony in support of SB 27? Seeing none, we will go to Las Vegas. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to offer testimony in support of SB 27? Seeing no one there, AVH, is there anyone on the lines in support of SB 27?
Chair, the public line is open and working. We have no callers for support of SB 27.
Thank you. We will move on to opposition to SB 27. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to offer any opposition testimony to the bill? Seeing no one in Carson City, is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to provide opposition testimony to the bill? And seeing none, AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to offer testimony in opposition to SB 27?
The public line is open and working. We have no callers for opposition of SB 27 at this time.
Thank you. And then we will move on to neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral on SB 27? Seeing no one. And in Las Vegas, is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral on SB 27? Seeing no one, AVH, we're back to you on neutral for SB 27.
Thank you. The public line is open and working. We have no callers for neutral of SB 27.
Thank you. Would the presenter like to come up to make any final remarks?
Thank you, Dan Thielen, for the record. We're grateful for the opportunity to always share our museums, and we encourage you to come visit your museums, and whether it's in Nevada or in Clark County, Carson City, or out in Ely, we'd love to host you there. Please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 27, and I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 418. To present this measure, we have representatives from PERS. And go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Considine, members of the committee. I'm Tina Liss. I'm the Executive Officer of the Public Employees Retirement System. Also here with me today is Teresa Chalmers. She's Chief Administrative Analyst of the Retirement System. And I'd also like to acknowledge in the audience is our Vice Chair of the Retirement Board, Brian Wallace. Senate Bill 418 was requested by the Retirement Board to strengthen the procedures available to the system to collect delinquent contributions due from public employers and to apply those procedures equally across the more than 200 public employers that participate in our system. The bill is important for the protection of all public employees' retirement accounts and the trust from which the retirement benefits are paid. I will first provide the background that led to the request for this bill, and then I will go through the provisions of the bill itself. Public employee retirement benefits are funded by employer and employee contributions required by NRS 286-410, 286-421, and 286-450, and the investment earnings on those contributions. 286-460 requires public employees to submit accurate payroll reports along with the contributions due on a monthly basis no later than 14 days after the end of the reporting period, and they do get some extension of time if there's any legal holidays that fall within that period. The employers remit both the employer and the employee contributions to PERS, regardless of whether the employee pays their portion through a reduction of salary or through an after-tax deduction from their salary. These payroll reports and contributions are necessary for the system to build and maintain the employee's retirement accounts. This includes the information and amounts necessary for crediting the service and the salary to calculate the benefits, and the amount of employee contributions available to refund if the employee does choose to refund contributions rather than receive a retirement benefit. PERS cannot credit employees with service credit or employee contributions until we have actually received those contributions. While a vast majority of our public employers are very responsible in making their contributions and providing their payroll reports to us, that is not always the case. Consequently, if employers are delinquent in paying the contributions, this may delay employees' retirements or withdrawal of their contributions. This can be the case even though the employer has already deducted their employee contributions from their paychecks. Investment earnings fund the majority of the retirement benefits that are ultimately paid to PERS. Of course, the foundation of the investment earnings are the contributions that are invested. Late contributions may lead to lost investment opportunity for the trust fund. In addition, PERS receives and pays out hundreds of millions of dollars monthly. Late contributions also impact our cash flow. Thus, timely contributions from the public employers are important for both our employers, our employees, and the trust fund. Now, soon after an employer is detected as being late in their contributions, PERS staff engages with the public employer to determine the cause of the delinquency and if there's anything that we can do to help the employer pay those contributions. Oftentimes, this initial engagement will solve the problem. Other times, PERS staff must continually engage the public employer without positive results. If staff engagement is unsuccessful, PERS will then bring the delinquency to the attention of the Retirement Board. NRS 286-460 provides the Retirement Board the authority to assess penalties to a public employer for late contributions. This is important to mitigate the risk of the late contributions. However, if we have trouble collecting the contributions, we will also have trouble collecting the penalties. NRS 286-462 does provide a collection procedure. This statute requires PERS to notify the Department of Taxation if an employer is 90 days delinquent in contributions and requests the department to take actions necessary in accordance with NRS 354-665. By the time the contributions are 90 days delinquent, allowing for us to submit a complaint to the Department of Taxation, PERS has typically spent significant staff time trying to resolve the issue, particularly if that employer has an employee that's attempting to retire or to refund their contributions during that time period. The Department of Taxation has always been extremely responsive, and this process has worked well for certain types of employers. Most recently, the Department of Taxation has not been able to assist us with the collection of delinquent contributions because the Department of Taxation does not have authority over certain types of public employers. This leaves the Retirement Board with little options outside of litigation at that point. This led to the request for SB 418 to provide a similar procedure to the current mechanism that would allow PERS to seek assistance from the appropriate agency with the statutory authority over each of our different types of public employers, whether it be a state agency, local government, school district, charter school, or the judicial or legislative branch. Over the last 2 years, we have had 9 public employers 90 days to 1 year late in making contributions that the Department of Taxation was unable to assist us with. This can be a particularly difficult situation if it involves a public employer, such as a charter school, which can cease to exist with little advance notice and without paying all of its liabilities. Section 1 of SB 418 amends 286-462 to require PERS to notify the appropriate authority when a public employer is delinquent by more than 90 days in paying contributions as follows. The State Board of Examiners for state executive branch agencies, the Office of Court Administrator for the State Judicial Branch, the Director of LCB for the State Legislative Branch, the Department of Taxation for local governments, and the Superintendent of Public Instruction for school districts and charter schools. Section 1 also provides a source of payment for any agency reported to the State Board of Examiners. Section 2 amends NRS 352-264 to allow the State Board of Examiners to expend funds from the Reserve for Statutory Contingency account. Section 3 amends NRS 354-671 to include contributions owed to PERS and an existing procedure in place for the Department of Taxation to collect delinquent amounts owed to the Public Employees Benefits Program by local governments. Section 4 amends NRS 387.1244 to provide a mechanism for the Superintendent of Public Instruction to deduct amounts otherwise payable to a school district or charter school to pay the contributions due. Section 5 provides that Senate Bill 418 would be effective upon passage and approval. And that concludes my prepared remarks, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Our first question is from Assemblymember Goulding.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm trying to understand kind of the scale of the problem and the cause of the problem. So 2 questions, if I may. First of all, can you give us an idea of what percentage of annual contributions are delinquent?
For as of April 12th, for the record, my name is Teresa Chalmers, Chief Administrative Analyst for PERS. As of April 12th, 2025, we have 2 charter schools that are more than 90 days delinquent currently on a payment plan. The total contributions owed is approximately $266,120.
So to clarify, on a percentage scale, or it's a pretty small percentage of the total amount that you're dealing with on an annual basis.
Tina List for the record, yeah. So we take in anywhere from $200 to $300 million in contributions monthly. And at some point, we had about $1 million in delinquency from the various public employers who were delinquent. So it's a very small percentage. However, it makes it so that we can't provide the retirement accounts for the individual employees for those public employers.
Thank you for that clarification. And the follow-up would be, you've mentioned charter school several times. You said there were 9 employers that are currently delinquent. But you've also mentioned charter schools multiple times. So I'm wondering if they're, if that type of employer is the most problematic, and have you investigated the cause of that?
Tina lists for the record, lately the category employer that we've had the most trouble with is charter schools. Part of that is because with other types of employers, like local government employers, we have that process through the Department of Taxation. Over the years, we've been able to use that process successfully when Department of Taxation has authority. Charter schools, there really is right now no one that we can go to that has authority over them. So I think that's part of the issue, and this bill will help solve that problem, that we now could go to the superintendent of public instruction. I think as for why that particular employer is the most difficult for us at this point, I can't really say, other than I do know that a lot of times they seem to have some sort of financial issues, but I couldn't really speak to why.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. I want to follow up on my committee members' questioning with regards to the number of delinquencies. So you had mentioned there are 9. You just outlined there are 2 of them. What are the other 7? And over, let's just say, the past 5 or 10 years, what sort of agencies have been delinquent? Specifically, which agencies?
Teresa Chalmers for the record. For fiscal year 2025, as Tina mentioned, there were 5 charter schools, 1 city, 1 county, 1 state board, and 1 special district. Over the course of the last 5, approximately the same amount of agencies, approximately 9 of our 229.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you, Chair. I think you may have answered my question, because in Section 4, it talks about the superintendent of public instruction. So the other agencies that have to pay in these retirement funds, it can automatically be deducted from the Department of Taxation or through the process currently, but the charter schools or a few of these other organizations fall outside that. And so, but in Section 4, it's only addressing the superintendent of public instruction. So is that the biggest loophole where we're not collecting, and why wouldn't it maybe include some of these other gaps from agencies, other agencies?
Tina lists for the record. The way the bill is drafted, we believe that it covers who has authority over the various agencies. Department of Taxation would have some authority over funds flowing to local governments, and which is why that procedure isn't working for school districts and charter schools. So Section 4 is specific to that type of employer, and because that is where money flows from to the charter schools, the idea is to be able to go to an entity that has essentially authority over funding that goes to the school as a very last resort to get the money from there, versus continually trying to negotiate with the school or the school district or the charter school.
Follow-up, Chair? So basically now, the money that comes from the superintendent of public instruction, let's say going to a charter school, now they can just do an offset for what is owed. Is that correct?
Tina lists for the record, that's the intent of the bill, yes, for that particular employer.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a quick follow-up to that, but that would only happen after you have, the 90 days has lapsed and you have tried to work directly with that entity and you're still not getting anywhere. So this is not a direct line. This is after a few steps, correct?
Tina lists for the record, we would not have the ability to even seek the help of the superintendent of public instruction until after 90 days delinquency.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Carter.
Thank you. So my question is kind of bifurcated. Is there any system, is there any consideration for recovering the lost interest and stuff that should have been earned while that money would have been in PERS possession, but instead is being collected for the benefit of the entity that failed on their contractual obligations? And is there a mechanism for handling habituals, repeat offenders, to where we take and make it to where that 90 days gets shortened up so we don't end up with charter school going out of business and leaving us on the hook when they've liquidated and shut themselves down.
Tina List for the record. We do have in the statute, they're termed penalties, but essentially the penalties that are on the delinquent contributions are what is to make the system whole, hopefully for interest, because it is calculated as an interest on the unpaid contributions. So that does already exist in the statute, but those would be penalties we need to assess and then collect. And the retirement board does have the ability to waive those penalties if the employer makes a request and provides good cause for why they were late with their contributions. As far as shortening the time or an employer that's habitual, we don't have anything specific in the statute at this point for that. Typically, we've once we get an employer kind of back on track, we've had pretty good track record with that. We don't have, I wouldn't say habitual in the sense that we have someone that's delinquent, they get caught up, they get delinquent again. Typically, once we get them completely caught up, we're in pretty good shape with them. However, we have seen some charter schools that go out of, and I'm not picking on charter schools, by the way, but charter schools are one of the few governmental entities that cease to exist. Our cities, our counties, our school districts, our fire departments, they don't cease to exist. Charter schools are really the one type of employer that we have that cease to exist, and so that can be an issue, but we don't have anything specific to deal with that in the statute.
Next question is from Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you for indulging me, Chair. Just kind of a follow-up on, again, one of my committee members questioning. So for your recent agencies or governmental bodies that are delinquent, are all of them lacking that collection mechanism in statute?
Tina List for the record. No, we've had, I think as Teresa mentioned, a city and a county recently. We've been able to resolve those with Department of Taxation help.
So a quick follow-up, Chair. So for that city and county, then you actually had to go through the collection process. They weren't willing to actually work with you to actually pay. You had to go to collection?
Teresa Chalmers for the record. Actually, when we did reach out to the Department of Taxation, they were able to work with those agencies, and the agencies directly paid us. So by utilizing our statute, we were able to have the Department of Taxation help assist with the collection process, but they did not have to pay that on behalf of the agencies. They paid them themselves.
Thank you. You stated that very nicely. Thank you, Chair.
Committee members, are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, and we will move on to testimony in support of the bill. Again, testimony can be provided in person here in Carson City, via video conference in Las Vegas, and over the phone. And we will begin here in Carson City with testimony in support of Senate Bill 418. Please go ahead when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Brian Wallace. I'm the Vice President of the Nevada State Education Association. I am also the Vice Chair of the Public Employees Retirement System. NSCA is in support of AB 418 to ensure that all members enrolled in PERS are protected when any public employer is delinquent in their PERS contributions. This is directly impacting PERS members since their years of service cannot be credited until contributions are received. Specifically, SB 418 directs the Superintendent of Public Instruction to deduct delinquent amounts due to PERS, including charter schools, when notified by PERS. It is extremely troubling that certain public employers, such as charter schools, do not feel that they need to be responsible with public monies and honor the commitment that they made to their employees to make on-time payments to their retirement accounts. The lack of payment by public employers are jeopardizing a public employee's ability to retire, since service credit is not recorded until payment is received. This trend must be reversed. Nevada PERS has continued to rank in the top third percentile. On-time payments of public dollars for public employees is necessary to ensure the PERS remains one of the highest ranked retirement systems in the United States. NSCA encourages this committee to pass SB 418 to protect our dedicated public employees. Thank you.
Kent Irvin, K-E-N-T-E-R-V-I-N, for the Nevada Faculty Alliance. Thank you, Chair and members. I regularly attend the Public Employees Retirement Systems Board meetings on behalf of the NFA. Over the past 2 years, the PERS Board has received reports of charter schools, public charter schools, that have not paid pension contributions for their employees. Multiple charter schools have been delinquent on amounts totaling nearly $1 million. That is outrageous and simply unacceptable. These public charter schools have deducted the PERS contributions from employees' paychecks, but did not afford even those amounts to PERS. Some have also not reported the service credits earned by their employees. That's a disgrace. How can these charter schools even be allowed to continue to operate while failing to fulfill their obligations to their own employees and to the state? You occasionally read about a scofflaw private company that has not paid payroll taxes for its employees. But these are state-supported institutions entrusted with Nevada's children. The charter schools are mostly on repayment plans now, but even some recent payments have been late. SB 418 fixes the problem by allowing PERS to intercept the state funding sources for government entities if they become delinquently, which is generally rare or quickly corrected for most entities. SB 418 is unfortunately an absolutely necessary bill. I urge your support. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Once again, Terry Laird for the record, T-E-R-R-I-L-A-I-R-D, representing the retired public employees of Nevada. I will just go on the record as being in support. We are in support of this bill as well for all the reasons already mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of SB 418? Seeing no one approach, AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 418?
Chair, the public line is open and working. We have no callers on the line for support of SB 418.
Thank you. We will now move to testimony in opposition to SB 418 here in Carson City. Seeing no one here in Carson City approach, in Las Vegas, is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 418? Seeing no movement in Las Vegas, AVH, we're back to you on testimony in opposition of SB 418.
Thank you. The public line is open and working. We have no callers for opposition of SB 418.
Then we will go to neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral on SB 418? Seeing no one, seeing still no movement in Las Vegas, anyone wishing to testify in neutral there? Then we will go to AVH. Is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral on SB 418?
Thank you. The public line is open and working. We have no callers for neutral for SB 418.
Thank you. Would the presenters like to provide any final remarks?
Thank you. Tina Liss, Executive Officer of the Public Employees Retirement System. We'd just like to thank this committee for allowing us to present SB 418 today, and also to thank the Senate Committee on Finance and Senator Dondera Loop for giving us the opportunity to bring this bill and for giving this important issue the attention that we feel it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will now, did you want to say anything? Okay. And I will now close the hearing on SB 418. And we will move on to public comment. Public comment is not an opportunity to rehear testimony on a bill, and we ask that you keep your public comment to topics within the jurisdiction of this committee. As a reminder, members of the public can provide public comment in person or telephonically and may submit public comment up to 24 hours after the meeting. Instructions for providing public comment can be found on the agenda. If you'd like to provide public comment telephonically today, dial 888-475-4499. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 856 894-3493, and then press pound when prompted for a participant ID. Each person will have up to 2 minutes to provide testimony. Please remember to clearly state and spell your name for the record. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to provide public comment today? Seeing no one, and seeing no one in Las Vegas, AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide public comment today?
The public line is open and working. We have no callers for public comment at this time.
Thank you. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, April 24th at 8 a.m. here in room 4100. That concludes our meeting for today. Thanks, y'all, and the meeting is adjourned.